The most anticipated earnings releases for the week of July 22, 2024. Presented by Earnings Whispers. Earnings season picks up this week with about 500 companies set to report results. Most will be reporting on Thursday, but the names you care about the most will be reporting earlier in the week. While earnings season picks up this week, the weeks ahead will be busier, with the large cap stocks peaking next week. The sector with the most earnings releases this week is the industrials, and there will be more in the weeks ahead. Verizon will be among those kicking things off Monday morning. The company beat expectations last quarter, but the results weren't exactly impressive, with a miss on the top line and a year-over-year decline in earnings. By our measure, they were just neutral. And here the stock is, trading almost exactly where it opened after reporting earnings last quarter. Probably, though, all that matters is that $42 level, which hasn't just been resistance over the past 6 months or so, it is also around where the stock was rejected in early 2023. Therefore, there is probably little reason to be long the stock until it can hold above $42. Cleveland Cliffs, or just Cliffs to their friends, will report after the close on Monday after missing expectations last quarter. Sentiment was rather bearish going into their earnings release last quarter and has actually improved since then. But overall sentiment remains bearish, and expectations are for weakness to continue. The two names you care about the most this week both report after the close on Tuesday. You really don't like either one, and even though the stocks are up significantly for both since they reported last, the level of bearishness among investors for both names is quite high. Assuming they deliver, though, that bearishness puts most traders on the wrong side and favors the stocks of Tesla and Alphabet. We have the opposite conditions with the two stocks at the top of investors' list on Wednesday. Chipotle reports after the close, and in recent weeks, investors' view of the stock has made some unusual fluctuations for a company that is so heavily followed. The stock split in late June, but just days before sentiment dropped to a multi-year low. Now, as the stock has sold off swiftly, sentiment has jumped. This is a stock that investors have loved for years, and so sentiment isn't unusually high. But the price action associated with it to completely reverse the initial post-earnings announcement drift is something to eye closely. Last week, Vertiv finally filled the gap following its earnings release last quarter when it reported a beat and raise. That puts some support at $80, but if it is going to hold, it likely needs to report a beat and raise again, or that $80 level is at risk of becoming resistance. The busiest day of the week for earnings releases has investors mostly focused on travel, with American Airlines and Royal Caribbean Cruises both reporting that morning. There have been strengths and weaknesses in the fundamentals for the airlines, but the technicals have been mostly weak. Now, after a couple of days of canceled flights due to the CrowdStrike issues, the weaknesses are likely to be amplified, just as shares of American press to new lows. The primary strengths within the airline industry is simply strong demand, which is a good thing to have. Some of that demand is people traveling for vacations, and that includes cruises, which puts the wind at Royal Caribbean's back. It will be a busy Friday morning, and investors will be eyeing results from Bristol-Myers Squibb closely. The company had some charges last quarter, and, by most measures, the results were weak. The stock broke to new lows and started trending lower. But in June, investor sentiment reached one of its lowest levels of the past 20 years as the stock hit $40. When it revisited $40 in July, sentiment improved. Quite simply, $40 is starting to look important. Back in 2021, shares of 3M were rolling over from the $170 level, and sentiment was at a multi-year high. Now, the stock appears to have bottomed in late 2023, and the stock has broken above the $95 level ahead of what is expected to be positive results. But sentiment is back at those 2021 levels. After last week's sell-off in the overall market, volatility has become elevated, and most of the big expected moves far exceed the averages over the past several quarters. For the most part, we have all the big names on the schedule for the next month. We know what you are thinking. No, Nvidia doesn't report until later. We still know what you are thinking. Yes, that is unusual. Shh.